Well, ladies and gentlemen, moving on towards the last panel discussion of the day, and we're going to have a discussion on strategies for effective and timely project delivery. We have a moderator, Mr. Anil Rawal, CEO, MD, Intellismart, as the moderator for this session. We have Ms. Kumud Wadhwa, Senior General Manager, PGCIL. We have Mr. Shambhu Shankar Gupta, Additional CEO, RECPDCL. Mr. JVS Ramakrishna, Head Strategy Solutions and Platform, Larsen and Toubro. We have Mr. Subhadip Raychaudhuri, HOD-RF and Nb-IoT, Tata Power. Well, I hope everybody is live, and now I would request our moderator, Mr. Anil Rawal, to please take it forward from here. And the next one are, I hope this session is going to be the most interesting one, because this is the last session of the event. And I wish you all the best. Over to you all. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Anil sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. So we have all the panelists, or we wait for somebody? Yeah. Do we wait for some panelists, or we can start?
One panelist is joining in just 1 minute.
Right. So we'll wait.
I think we can start with a quick introduction, and then by the time he would join.
Sure. I'll start with myself, and I'm Anil Rawal. I'm heading Intellismart Infra Private Limited, which is a joint venture of National Investment Infra Fund, a government-backed fund, and ESL, which is Energy Efficiency Services Limited, which is itself a JV of some of the PSUs of Government of India. And our main drive and mission is smart metering and smart grid and digital initiatives in the distribution sector. And we intend to promote the OPEX model of project implementation in smart metering. And my background is I belong to civil services 96 batch, and I did about 10 years of government service, and then I went into Ahmedabad and did Ahmedabad in 2007-8, and since then I have been with various corporates, mostly in power sector across the value chain, and have been fortunate to really be part of the team or leading some of the teams which were sort of government and private joint ventures in certain projects in particular transmission and distribution sector. And I've been in this company Intellismart for last about 1 year, and we are striving to do and support the smart metering program as much as possible in best possible manner. That's all about me. I'll request the panelists to please introduce themselves before we really go ahead. So we can start. Yeah, please, JVS, if you.
Yeah, sir. Good afternoon. My name is JVS Ramakrishna, and I represent Larsen and Toubro Smart World Business. We are into the IoT integration and analytics business, focusing on Smart World. And as an individual, I've been with L&T for last 22 years, playing various roles of business and technology. Currently, I'm actually responsible for the strategy and solutions of L&T Smart World, and we have privilege of working with Mr. Rawal Saab, in one of the largest AMI rollout in the country. That's my introduction.
May I request Ms. Kumud to please go next?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kumud Wadhwa, working as Senior General Manager with National Smart Grid Mission Project Management Unit. And basically, I am an employee of Power Grid with over 30 years of experience in power sector. Just to give background, I joined NTPC in '89 after completing my engineering in electrical. And I also did my MBA in 2009 from MDI University, which was sponsored by my company. And I was part of the India Smart Grid Task Force and was responsible for design of Smart Grid project from its conceptualization stage. We also designed the Smart Grid roadmap for the country. And at present, I'm supporting Ministry of Power as part of NPMU under Mr. Mishra for inputs for managing the Smart Grid projects in the country. So this is my background.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks a lot. So if I could request Mr. Gupta to please introduce himself.
Good afternoon, esteemed moderator and panelists. I am honored and glad to be a part of this allied panel from power sector. As an additional CEO RECPDCL, I am happy to share my views on smart metering. As I understand, today's topic is of quite mature and candid, and these have been the most prevalent issues, as we may say, challenges across the power sector in the quadrants of government in all the sectors. Now, I am an electrical engineering graduate from IIT, having more than 2 decades of experience with Tata Electric, ABB, and along with the closely monitoring of RECPDCL, smart metering ever-widening footprints in J&K, Chandigarh, and Goa. As we can say, Indian power sector is ushering in digital transition by undertaking digital initiatives and increasing the operational and financial health of discoms of the country. I must say, in the unprecedented COVID-19 crisis, this digital technology has really helped discoms to realize revenues by way of adopting digital methods and digital technology, one of the means of smart metering projects. There's a long way to go ahead in smart metering projects. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, sure, Mr. Thanks a lot. Mr. Raychaudhuri, please.
Good afternoon, sirs, madam. I am Subhadip Raychaudhuri. I am leading the project of smart meter and AMI implementation in our organization. I work for Tata Power Delhi Distribution Limited. Our project in RF has reached a level of maturity. We are trying the new technology of Nb-IoT now. Systems have been integrated. Speaking specifically about myself, well, I am a member of the CBIP, BIS committees which go on to formulate the specifications of the meters. I was involved uniquely with CEA developing things. I thank my organization for the opportunities given. And why? It's August company here today. That's all from my side, sir.
Thanks a lot. In case there's no other presentation, we can start. Amul, any thoughts? We start with our sessions, or you have anything else to do in between? Right. So there seems to be no intervention coming from organizers. That's okay. So we are left on our own, and it's good to have, not an issue. So let's start the discussion. And as Mr. Gupta very aptly said, that this topic is probably, despite it's contextual to the smart metering program of strategies for effective and timely project delivery, is something I would say far more wider and pertains to almost everything in terms of large projects which may be pertaining to infra or otherwise. Let's if we focus within infra, the power sector, this is very I would say apt and critical for project execution and delivery in a fruitful manner. This has been the essence of things when it comes to almost all the parts: generation, transmission, or distribution. And if we think a bit deeply, what defines what defines the strategy to be effective or not would be more in terms of definition of contractual commercial framework. Sometimes a good contractual commercial framework itself becomes a driving force in terms of a strategy being successful or not. One thing is sure, that if the project is executed in time and say within cost, which could be a dream situation, it could be a far more efficient situation compared to a situation where the project lingers on and actually takes many recourse, and it finally ends up either not being happening or not delivering anything to the client as well as the end consumer. So at the end of the day, it becomes the pivot point to delivery of the assets, delivery of the services to the consumer. Now coming to the distribution sector and smart metering. As I said, contractual and commercial framework defines it a lot, and wherever success has been achieved, I would say in our country, we are not best known for timely delivery generally. And there's no specific comment about any sector. Generally, we have not been, and there's a regular monthly report which is released by Government of India on the delay of the projects, and any of us can access. It's a public information. Once one goes through this data, one really feel astonished. The quantum of resources going down the drain and really not achieving its target. So as I said, it's very important to focus on the contractual and commercial framework while we strategize around the delivery of the projects. If you come to the distribution sector, it has also not been very well known for that. And if it comes to smart metering, it has its own problems. Yeah. So what I wanted to say, it's a generic issue. And whereas we are required to focus on smart metering is no different than the wider framework where the problems are there. I would request panel to deliberate on various parts of the smart metering value chain, or else if they want to exemplify some other project, and try and deliberate a bit deeper on the value components, and whether there was a contractual commercial issue or whether there was something else which actually caused the delay or which has the potential of causing the delay. As far as my experience goes, I would share first the contracts have obviously always two parties. There's a contractor and there's a client, and there's a in between a buffer which is called contract agreement, which actually defines the obligation on both sides. A seamless integration of these three components. I know while contract is a known living component, but it becomes the most buzzing part of the story when it comes to the implementation of the project. And we should understand that contract cannot define everything in life. Sometimes when we expect that contract should have defined everything which is going to happen, it is almost impossible. And sometimes when we think that contract could be just anything, a small piece of paper, and we can work out on our own, that's again the other side of the story, which would not be right. So whether the contract is sufficiently balanced, whether it has actually listed out all the aspects, particularly when it comes to obligations, I would try and point out 3-4 things which I think contractually commercial are critical for a successful strategy. First of all is the obligations of both parties. Secondly, what happens if they don't meet obligations? 3, if they start meeting obligations, what happens if they incur extra time or extra cost, how it will be treated? 4, is there a mutual discussion allowed in the contracts to really tweak them as per the need? And what happens if mutual discussion fails? So that's the exit clauses, termination clauses, how they impact the client, how they impact the consumer, and how they impact the both parties. So these are some of the things which actually define. Now it comes to an implementation. The most important strategy would be to really plan. I would say mostly where we fail on the ground is probably in terms of our planning. We plan probably not for constraints. A constraint planning in terms of resources, of say financial resources, or say manpower resources, and all other deliverables which would require many things to be thought of, we actually tend to fail. When we think planning, we normally go by the arithmetical planning. There's so many meters in so many days, so many teams, per team so many, and that's all. But then we don't actually think various other components of the plan which actually would play out, and don't keep the slack. So slack based constraint planning, I think, would be the most important part of the story when it comes to the strategy for implementation and timely delivery of the projects. We have seen on ground on our ESL projects that most of the ESL projects were signed on MOUs. As I said, there's one side of the story where you think a small MOU can achieve you a very large program. At times that also may not be right. And sometimes a very detailed agreement can also fail. So the launch in ESL projects was based on the MOUs, and the aim was very simple. In this country, smart metering was just not being undertaken by any private party because it was too risky. It was too hot a potato to handle with the distribution companies, we know, and that to an OPEX mode. CAPEX mode, I can understand that the people can splice some few thousand meters and get the money and probably survive and then do the rest of it, and but on OPEX mode where utilities didn't have any money to pay upfront, and there was somebody who was required to handhold and implement the project and then risk its revenue, that which will be collected once the project is implemented, was a very uphill task. And that was probably initiated by ESL based on certain MOUs. MOUs were to be followed by agreements, and agreements really took some time to come. That's where as I said, that the balance of the document, whether if there is MOU, whether it is sufficiently empowered to take the project through. When the MOU was there, agreement was expected. Agreement didn't happen. Because agreement didn't happen, no payment came. Yeah, it will be very interesting to know that ESL has not been getting payment for large number of projects, and despite that they could survive for long. So frankly, in recent times, we really sought for the agreement signings. Agreement signing is obviously now through, and agreement signing has, frankly, let me tell you, has seen lot many positive. Projects have restarted. Rajasthan project has got restarted once agreement is in shape. All the specifications have been settled. Similarly, you will see Bihar agreement signed, got Haryana agreement got signed. These agreement signing have led really a right approach on the ground, and things are now shaping up. So what I wanted to bring out is a balance of right agreement, a right contractual commercial arrangement, and a deeper planning. These are a few things which can result into a large scale ramp up, particularly when it comes to utilities which may not be best of the paying capacity. As on date, we may have to enable them, handhold them, as well as roll out a large program, which is the desired state of affairs today. These are the few my thoughts which I thought I'll share, and then I'll request each of you to please come out with your ideas, and then let's deliberate and let's try and summarize some outcome out of this discussion and take some questions also. So I'll request with Ms. Kumud to please start, and then we can go one by one with our ideas. Please. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Rawal. You have very validly stated that contractual and commercial prepositions are first and foremost important for effective project delivery. I'll just extend it a little bit, and I'll start with project lifecycle management systems. Maybe we start with the planning stage. When we say we are starting with planning stage, what is it that we want to achieve from that project? So what are the needs for that particular project objectives? We have to clearly articulate about the project objectives. And for smart metering, we need to have clear idea of the project use cases that are to be implemented based on the utility's priority requirements. Because each utility may have different priorities or different requirements based on their maturity level. So what are the different use cases they would like to be implemented as part of smart metering project? That should be clearly defined. And as part of India Smart Grid Task Force, we had prepared a comprehensive list of use cases for smart metering, which are also available at National Smart Grid Mission website. So those were kind of evolving use cases wherein people could further add to those use cases or even suggest modifications. But somehow that is a stand-alone list as of now, but still people can refer to that use case list and pick and choose which use cases can help in their project outcomes. So that was at planning stage. And we just not limited to the objectives of project. We also need to have a project team in place. So who will be the key resources for that project? What time is available from that team? It is not just that IT cell of each utility should be made responsible for additional smart metering project. We should also look into what time is available. And if there is a time constraint, maybe we need to strengthen the team so that they can take up the additional role of the new project. Again, building on to that, what is the capacity of the people who are going to take up the project? So we start with the capacity building also for effective project delivery. We need to explain them how the smart metering will function, what will be the outcome of the smart metering project, and how they are going to really make the change in their own distribution company. So they should relate to the project, and they should be given specific training for that. Coming next, after the planning stage comes the award stage. So you have already deliberated upon the importance of agreements and the contractual and commercial terminologies which should be there to help the successful implementation of the projects. And to support that, already some discussions have happened around the standard bidding documents, which has been developed by the National Smart Grid Mission team in consultation with various partners, which is available for the utilities to adopt. And though it may not be able to cover each and every nuances of the contract, there may be some still improvements required. So my submission will be, people should look into those standard bidding documents and then revert if they want some changes to be made with proper reasoning for why that change should happen. And then there are so many pre-bid discussions happening around those contractual documents. So if we can have a mechanism where those pre-bid queries can be shared, so then the next utility can learn from that pre-bid queries, and maybe they can build in their document itself based on their commercial and contractual regulations. So building onto that comes the execution stage. So when we are going into execution stage, we need to involve the consumer as well. So how to engage the consumer so that there is not resistance from their side, because there will be a change happening in their premises. We need to connect with the consumer. We need to explain how the smart metering is going to help them. And then maybe we have the teams which are going to effectively deliver. When we talk about the teams, again, the capacity of the team and the standard procedure about the meter replacement, that also will help. Maybe there is a team which can replace the meter in a certain time, and another team takes 20% or 30% lesser time. So what should be the standard procedure for replacement of the meter? Not just opening the tunnels and then putting in another meter, but how about the data migration? What is the plan for data migration? Whether the team on ground is able to handle the data migration, or they need some support on that. So all those things are to be considered while we are planning the execution stage as well. After execution, maybe when the implementation has happened, during execution and operation, we need to support the utility people so that the desired changes in the business processes also takes place along with the project operation. It's not just that technology is put in place and it will start delivering the results. People need to know what benefits they'll get out of the project that has been implemented in terms of smart metering, how that project can help not only on commercial targets, but also in operational targets and better consumer service delivery perspectives. And also how it can help them to follow the regulatory requirements of quality management. Because as of now, we know that CA has stipulated certain quality requirements even at the distribution side. But whether the utility persons are able to really deliver that quality of power, and how, if not, then how the smart metering project can help them in meeting those quality requirements. So all this communication. So the communication strategy is also very important strategy for effective delivery of the project implementation. Throughout the project implementation stage, how do we communicate with the stakeholders, and what message we are articulating to really take them on board is going to play an important role in effectively delivering the projects. It's not just the operation. but closer of the project. What were the key learnings? What were the key issues that were faced for each and every project? Because each and every project implementation is unique. There will be a list of certain issues that were faced while executing those projects. So if we can have a standard issue register, which is shared maybe with the in the next stage. So from that knowledge base, we can plan for an effective delivery in the next cycle. So it should be a cyclic process. And then selection of the appropriate partner who is CMM certified, they have proper change management protocols in place, and version control, and all such IT project management practices which are there, they should be followed. So this is my little maybe input on how we can have a effective project management strategy for the smart metering projects, maybe.
I think very well covered. I would say a few of the points really stand out, and that's I would believe the communication part. Why I'm saying it stands out is smart metering projects are not the projects like highways or roads or airports, which were done many times. There's no path which has been toed and somebody has to go and tow the same path. These smart metering projects are the projects where you have to build the path. When you are building the path, a feedback loop and communication with the stakeholders, involving them, engaging them, and a collaborative effort, co-evolving, co-ownership is extremely important, because it's not that there are many smart metering projects which have been done in the country and somebody will go and do it and there's a SOP made. You have to build your own SOPs, and there the feedback loop and communication becomes one of the most critical part of the story, and improvement in the next projects obviously would become the I think very well said. May I request Gupta ji to please share his ideas before we go to the next project.
Thank you, sir. As you rightly said and madam has pointed out, we have to document the learnings, what we have learned from the earlier projects which have been implemented across the country and across the states. My submission is like strategy. First of all, what is the strategy? See, what you have also rightly said, it is not like a conventional EPC project. Talk about switchyard or substation or transmission lines or distribution lines, where all the items are standardized, like power grid, NTPC and DISCOMs. They all are having standard GTPs, standard drawings. So they don't take time to approve any engineering deliverables. My first point is, in smart grid projects or smart metering projects, NSGM has done a lot of things on the contractual part. We have to, like what madam has said, suppose there are a lot of projects have been awarded, and during the award of the contracts, a lot of series of pre-bid conferences have been there. So we have to document those pre-bid conferences. These pre-bid conferences will facilitate to improvise the RFP. See, in smart metering projects, as you have rightly said, basically the contract, the commercial contract, which has to be signed among 3 or 4 stakeholders like DISCOM, AMISP, turnkey contractor, or SI system integrator. So what we find normally in the mid of the contract, like we have to sign the SLA also. So SLAs also are not, sometimes SLAs are so theoretical, they are not able to fulfill the SLAs, and DISCOMs are unnecessarily penalizing the AMISP or PIAs, those who have implemented the projects. So my first point is commercial and techno-commercial agreement, or you can say MOU. These documents are to be very, very carefully drafted, signed or penned among all the stakeholders. So we should not miss any of the points which may land us in trouble. What you have rightly said, like ESL has not been getting the payments from DISCOM. So it may happen to RECPDCL also in future. So my worry is, my concern is, it is a win-win situation, whether it's a DISCOM or AMISP or consumer. For all the 3, it should be win-win. So my point is, DISCOM ownership is the must for successful implementation of project, not only smart metering project. We have been implementing RGGY, Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana, IPDS, REPDRP, Part A, Part B. If you see all the implementation of these government programs, wherever DISCOM has taken ownership, the success of the project clearly demonstrates. If DISCOM is in the back foot, whether you can deploy LNT or any best company, they cannot deliver the results until or unless ownership of DISCOM comes in the project. What happens when they get the work signed with ESL or RECPDCL or any PIA Power Grid or NTPC? They think, their employee thinks that now this project lies with the ESL or RECPDCL. We do not need to do anything. So you have rightly said, contractual obligation are to be clearly spelled out. And number one. Number two, what I also feel from my side, engineering documents, GTPs and drawings. Now we have executed many projects across the country are to be standardized. If you are focusing on mass rollout, like what REC has done in Deen Dayal and IPDS, we have made SBD. In SBD, we have enclosed tender drawings. We say tender drawings, but standardized drawings. Like Power Grid, if you execute a Power Grid project, Power Grid have standardized drawings. Earlier, in 2 decades back, if you start to execute Power Grid project, it takes a lot of time in engineering approvals, in GTP approvals. Now the time has come, era has come. You don't need time to get the GTP and drawing approval. So my question is, we have made very wonderful document in NSGM. We may include some standard drawings, installation double meter. So what normally happens at site, a meter installer is installing the meter, smart meter. He does not even know the height of the meter from the FGL. So he installed it at different elevations, and it is a very shabby picture. So if we have a standard drawings of meter installation, LT service cable, so like execution will be very, very seamless, what you have said in your opening remarks. Now, for strategy from my side, what I feel, we should, in pre-installation phase, we should make a strategy for criteria to adopt to select an area or feeder. Suppose high AT&C losses, low billing efficiency, high energy theft, urban areas. We should not roll out in mass. We should roll out in a phased manner, having a well-defined strategy, well-defined document on what grounds we have selected these areas for smart metering. See, if we are able to build the revenue, if we are able to reap the benefits with the conventional meters. So my question is, you take the priority at 2 or 3 or 4, take those areas where high energy input is there, low billing efficiency is there, and high AT&C losses is there. So that would be in the pre-installation phase, we have to do the proper homework for selecting the scheme area where we have to deploy the smart meter, we have to install the smart metering project, number one. Number two, we have to adopt a lean approach, what we have said in your agenda. Lean approach is, we don't need to crowd at the site. The gangs which are at field should be properly trained in smart metering installation projects. We should not experiment at the field. Now, a lot of time has been gone. Now, we should, what Madam has said, we have to do the capacity building. The companies which have been engaged for these kind of works, their workforce should be properly skilled and maybe scaled up in different kind of capacity building center, so that at site they should not experiment and kill the time. Number one. Number two, inventory management is also very, very important. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि smart meter has been dumped at a store, at the lab of the DISCOMs, and they are not able to test and seal the meters. Normally, a DISCOM daily capacity varies from DISCOM to DISCOM. Some DISCOM have a lab capacity of 200 meters testing per day, 300 meters testing per day. So we have to also focus on the DISCOM testing center. Now time has come, it is a need of hour to scale up the testing facility of DISCOM. If DISCOM is not in position to scale up the testing facility, CPSUs or institutions which are being involved in framework of smart metering projects, they may come forward to build the capacity for testing at DISCOM and for testing and sealing of the meters. This is my point is for the approach. Now, next point is like when we execute the project, there are a lot of issues, ROW issues, public resistance. In suppose in rural areas or semi-urban areas, you may face a public resistance. For this resolution of public resistance, we in the pre-installation phase, consumer engagement program, consumer awareness program is to be properly spread across the masses through e-media or print media, normally what is happening, people are very like anxious कि smart meter के आने से मेरा बिजली का बिल बढ़ जाएगा. So ये जो यूपी में भी ऐसा फील हुआ. I belong to UP. I was earlier in Lucknow, REC Lucknow. I have come to RECPDCL Gurgaon. So वहाँ what we have found कि like neighborhoods या smart meter, आप तो power sector से देखो smart meter से बिजली का बिल बढ़ रहा है. So to address these kind of issues, what we have to do is we don't need to remove conventional meter, put a smart meter side by side, let them have a feel, not for all the conventional meters. Suppose you are replacing 100 meters. Out of 100 meters, if it is possible for 20 meters, retain old meters, put smart meter side and take the readings. So consumer will have a confidence कि what my conventional meter is showing the reading, same reading is being displayed by the smart meter. So that is what, as far as consumer resistance, what we are feeling at the site. Lot of contractors are saying sir consumer meter लगाने नहीं दे रहे. तो इस प्रॉब्लम को एड्रेस करने के लिए हमें कंज्यूमर एंगेजमेंट प्रोग्राम नॉट फॉर द पेपर सेक प्रॉपरली इसको चलाना पड़ेगा ताकि पब्लिक थोड़ा इनरिच हो, इनलाइटेंड हो कि गवर्नमेंट क्या चाह रही है. इट इज अ विन विन प्रोपोजिशन. ऐसा नहीं है कि हम डिस्कॉम को प्रॉफिट दे रहे हैं, हम कंज्यूमर को बेनिफिट भी दे रहे हैं. जब ये बात समझ में आएगी तो इसका रोल आउट सक्सेसफुल होगा. ये बात कंज्यूमर का हो गया. अगला है हमारा कि जब हम स्मार्ट प्रिंटिंग प्रोजेक्ट इंप्लीमेंट करते हैं, when we implement the projects, lot of ROW issues are there, lot of approvals, okay, there are so many stakeholders. So what we feel, they must be a committee, like we have a committee saying SLSC in rural government programs like RGGY, Deen Dayal, Saubhagya. Similarly, we have a DRC for IPDS projects, RAPDRP, Part A, Part B. Similarly, for smart metering, Ministry of Power may come with an OM to the states. You constitute a committee. Now, smart metering does not distinguish urban and rural. What earlier we had been in like IPDS and Deen Dayal आपको SLC से approval लेना पड़ेगा, आपको IPDS के लिए DRC से. Similarly, we have to constitute a committee, senior committee of state key officers, which will immediately address the issues which DISCOM has not been able to solve the problems. Because sometimes you feel at the site you may have admin issues. So admin issue may be resolved by the state committee. So it is a need of the project. We should have one committee in place. What we are having in the Indian and IPDS. Maybe we are going to constitute because scheme is already, the distribution revamp scheme is already in the planning and very soon it will be launched. So these are my point. Now what next is smart metering के लगने के बाद हमें benefits जो हैं वो properly document करने पड़ेंगे. जहाँ स्मार्ट मीटरिंग प्रोजेक्ट लगा वहाँ पे benefits क्या हुआ उसको हमें document करना पड़ेगा.
If you could wrap up so that we can go to
last point is now come to the like pre-installation, installation. Now come to the closure. Of the closure of the project, we have to document the closure documents as built document so that in next project it should be properly referred. Not for the execution, for the SLAs also. What SLAs we have been mentioned in the RFP and what SLAs have been met out. Is any deviation we have noted so we can improve in the future SLAs. And what is the strategy for exit after the closure, like 3 + 7 years, or if we want to scale up the network, upscale the network, the upscaling provision is there or not. With this words, I am closing my views. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Very practical, very practical. It's coming from the ground. Actual pains. Some of the points I felt I am speaking. For example, TAT, TAT, how much time you can take for approval, co-ownership, unless the program is owned by the DISCOM and they feel that there is somebody to enable them to do well, this program cannot happen. Documentation, yes, communication, really good points coming from ground. Now let's go to the people who actually do on the ground and face the heat from the front. And maybe alphabetically start with JVS quickly and then Mr. Raychaudhuri. Please, JVS, if you could share.
Sure, sir. Thank you. I should confess that I come from technology background. So I'll talk from that perspective as a system integrator. Sir, if you allow, I'll run few slides, so that it will guide the discussion.
But maybe a bit quickly.
Yeah, I'll not take much time, sir.
Yeah.
I'll not take much time. I will not take most of the time. I'll go into the topic straight away. I'll not sell much of the L&T Smart World and all. But it is all about smart cities and communication, which I was talking about, wherein we work in geospatial AI, computer vision technologies. Currently, we are working in so many areas, mostly led by smart cities. But most of our work, as far as AMI is concerned, is actually is with ESL, what we are doing now. In addition to the transition from a system integrator to technology, I think we are also going through that process of realizing that you cannot take an EPC approach. So we have been investing more and more technology. But on the other side, in technology, IT companies are trying to come into this. I think it's good to see both ways happening over here. But what is important over here is that if you see the program which we have been engaged in with Intellismart and ESL, is that initially I think we were able to scale up to almost 15 lakh meters, probably the fastest rollout, and subsequently during the COVID time, owing to the various issues and all, we were able to focus a lot in terms of performance improvements and architecture optimization. But given the scale, I should actually confess that we had all the advantages of the beginners or for early movers. So we were facing the heat from contractual perspective, interpretation perspective, payment perspective, everything, and technology perspective in terms of our learning. So I think we are learning it. I think we are learning it. And I also should actually go on record here saying that this program, as published by ESL, has been a very successful program, where we are working at least in UP, we are talking about close to around 294 rupees per meter per month, increase in the discom revenues. So is the case in Haryana. It is almost 100 plus rupees, and Delhi around 500 plus rupees. Why I'm showing this one is, and we all have been talking about AMI issues and learning and all. I think on the ground there is significant amount of benefits that are being delivered from the discom point of view. I think there is good amount of work we all need to work towards educating the end consumers as well. But I'll put only one slide in terms of our key learnings. Being a system integrator, I think we have learned few things. Though we had good cushion and buffering with respect to the capex and opex models, wherein ESL, Intellismart are actually playing that role. But I think have learned in a way that I think discoms ownership. I think he was earlier speaker was also mentioning about it. Is that we need to get good amount of involvement from discoms in terms of what actually are their requirements, notwithstanding what actually is written into the contract. And we also need to have good amount of involvement throughout the implementation project for discoms, especially which will ease out the UAT sign off. This is the most critical learning we had, because we have taken an EPC approach. But if it were an IT or technology approach, I think we would have taken a typical software development lifecycle approach. Second thing which we have also realized is, again, based on what we have seen, some of the critical systems, especially the head-end systems, I think we are working with the global players for various projects and various tenders. But I think we need to also we realized that we should actually also have these global players do a bit of localization with respect to development capability to support such a critical infrastructure. Otherwise you will be dependent for technology on other countries, and they are driven by the regulatory requirements of that particular country. I think this is where actually we have got good amount of learning in terms of which sort of critical systems we need to choose going further. The third one is, while we are working in UP and Haryana, predominantly dependent on the 3G and 4G communication network, which is reasonably good, but to really achieve the benefits that were envisaged, to get maximum coverage of 98, 99, or even 100% to the extent possible, I think there should be openness in terms of the tenders, allowing multiple communications depending on the feasibility, both from the meter vendors as well as from the head-end systems, which will enable us to actually really deliver the benefits envisaged in AMI. I think consumer awareness, most of the speakers have really spoke about. I think we face the heat, a lot of heat on the ground with respect to resistance from consumers. I think all the stakeholders, as Mr. Rawal was talking about, the discoms, the contractors, and the PMUs all will have to work towards to improve the consumer awareness to ease out the process, and also I think periodic update with respect to what benefits they are getting. I think it's very, very important. And we have also one suggestion which we have seen is there are a lot of discounts coming with a lot of tenders with for 1 lakh meters, 2 lakh meters, 50,000 meters, probably based on their maturity of adopting this technology or funds availability. I think there should be some amount of standardization happening at least discom level with respect to MDM, wherein they can scale on the endpoints based on funding availability and try to consolidate. Otherwise, states and discoms will end up with multi-technology, multi-vendor environments, which itself is a big, task to really manage. I think I leave it myself to this with a note that I think the smart metering program has been extremely, successful. I think it's been delivering benefits, notwithstanding the some of the negative press. But I think we all look forward to be more wiser and matured in this particular journey. And I also would like to thank Intellismart, their role under leadership of Mr. Rawal they're playing. We have learned a lot, and I think they were one of the key reasons why we have moved from EPC into getting into a solution provider. But the proof is in pudding. Thank you very much for the time, Mr. Rawal.
Sure. Thanks a lot, JVS, and very well said that whether the current approach of having few small projects, or say 50,000, 1 lakh is fine, or the digitalization benefits lies in the scale, right? That has to be captured. If I have 50,000 meters data, what result I get, or where's the economy of scale? When you're talking about 250 million meters, can it be done like this? That 50,000 meters, 1 lakh meter, then again 50,000 meters, 2 lakh meters. This is not the way. Across the world, it has not been done like this. Across the world, there have been experiments where large scale, for example, MDM you talk about, and the specific data companies. So scale is the critical part of the story, and scale can be achieved by the right kind of standardization which you brought out, and I think all the speakers brought out. And there's a need to identify these, and if you want to really achieve in next 3 years or whatever number of years, there has to be drive which is different than what we are doing now. What we have done so far is at the best, even ESL, just 17 lakh meters. 17 lakh meters could be as good as Australia, but it's just nothing in the country, in this country. 250 million meters, at the best, it's a pilot. We should immediately learn from this pilot and ramp up and roll out in far more bigger way. I would really agree with you. And with this, I request Mr. Raychaudhuri, sorry, he being the last one but not the least one, most important. Please go ahead, Mr. Raychaudhuri. Lots of experience in the background, and we would love to hear from you. Please.
So somebody has to come at the last. Nothing wrong in it. Anyway, you had asked for a presentation. I have made it. I would like to show it to you. 5 minutes, good enough?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
The thing is, can you see my screen? Number one.
Yeah, it's visible.
Yes. Yes. I think pointer. Yes. Now moving ahead, that this is what the presentation looks like. Now, the strategies you had asked for integration of operational efficiencies and lean approach, we will speak about what we have done in this project, sir. The early identification of important decision makers in the project, developing a strategic roadmap to overcome bureaucracy. These are the points that you wanted. So we have prepared on that, and this is where we stand actually. If in case you have a look, what is the deployment scenario of installation? What is the typical distances between end devices? These are the questions that we wanted to know for operational efficiencies that we are trying to reach. The reason is very simple. In 2012 to 16, 4 years of planning and thinking. At that point of time, these are the distribution automation or automatic demand response. These are the cases that we were seeing about. Now, if in case you compare this with today, you will find that a lot of no's have become yes, and a lot of yes has come in with a lot of question marks. So therefore, When we are looking for a project, the most important part for us happens to be to identify the business cases. When we started this project, even then, we were a single digit AT&C company. So we understood that just that will not help us. Therefore, we had to integrate AMI with ADMS. That is what our main job is. While I'm speaking, the automation will run on its own so that the time taken is less. That's what we had done. So what we did is we will put a smart meter. The last gasp and first breath will come in. It will get integrated with OMS and SCADA systems and GIS. It will also go to the SAP CRM. If in case a consumer says that they do not have supply, we will ping the consumer online and see whether it is really online or offline. Now, for all that, what we will need is a robust communication system. The reason why I say this is that is where the things come in from. Next came a strategic roadmap to overcome bureaucracy. Like it or not, all of us have our own ways of doing things. The problem which happens is first you get the communication in, and then you plan and see what are the things that you want. And once that is done, you go ahead with others. At that point of time, a steering committee was formed in the organization at the very top level of our organization. The project manager, that is me, we go on to define this to sir. Along with that, the tendering process, etc., a constitution of a smart meter core team was done, because a meter is a meter. So the first thing that any utility sees is the tamper thing which is over there. Once that tamper, we are very fascinated with it. It's very important for us as well. So that takes a bit of time there. After that, the meters get tested. Similarly, once you go in for the contractual part, the tendering part is also another part in itself, and that is the most difficult part. The dreaded word or the acronym happens to be LD. By LD, we understand a host of things, sir. A few understand late delivery, a few understand latent defect, a few understand liquidated damages, and all the three clauses taken together as well. After that comes your execution and monitoring. As we did, it was a cross-functional team so that things can run in parallel and every person is answerable in itself. As Sir was saying that testing becomes very important, we created a new test bench altogether for single phase and three phase. And this smart meter communication lab, we went in for RF at that point of time. Therefore, all meters needed to be checked on RF. That was important because, as Mr. Gupta has said, and we not only agree with him, we share the same sentiments. Site is no place for experimentation. Speed gets slow. Now, improving communication across team. So this is how we had developed our team, sir. We understood what is to be done. Therefore, lean and effective team, the same team will go to the consumer. A consumer generally does not like his meter being changed because there is no need for it. So that counseling has to be done. Therefore, what we gathered while we are speaking with consumers is your work has to be very clean. So we started carrying even the baskets along with us, sir, so that even the single wire that we strip goes into that basket. Along with that, the older meters, we are in a replacement project. Though we agree with Gupta sir, there's a problem which we faced. The older meters were smaller in size. The new meters, that is the smart meters, were bigger in size because there are switches and additional communication modules in it. Therefore, fitting it in is a difficult job. Therefore, planning that, especially for places where you have a meter board, where you have somewhere around 20, 25 meters, how do you plan that out? The entire system has to be changed that way. That has to be done. Therefore, single installation, today I'm installing 1 meter, tomorrow 2 meters, it doesn't work that way. You will have to go to one area and finish that way. Sessions, workshops were done, and these are the appreciation letters which we got after we started going from one RWA to the other RWA and completing the job and moving ahead. Our vans were made. We proposed that. Along with that, what are the benefits that I will get? That is what a consumer asks. So we told all that to them. Along with that, you're reading, billing, complaint, etc. What we understood while speaking with the consumer is the project which had come from approval is for higher end of whole current segment, that is greater than 300. Those consumers do not really need much, because if in case you have an AC, they prefer running it. So therefore what we understood is they need value added services. They need an app whereby they can monitor their consumption, whereby they can, as Delhi is running today, 200 units, you have one scale of subsidy, 400 units, you have another scale of subsidy. Even if you do not have subsidy, the rates change. Therefore, that planning out for a smaller section of consumer where it is possible has to be given. The senior citizens who, after their lunch and medicines, used to get very disturbed with people going in, where the ideal case is for meter reading being taken from remote. Like it or not, sir, we always had AMR. And like all city utilities, even our 50% of revenue comes from AMR meters. Through smart meters, our reach has been important now. 2.3 lakh smart meters done. I do not like the word billing efficiency. Our reading efficiency is 98%. Billing efficiency includes the losses. So billing efficiency is, once again, another issue altogether. So the reading efficiency is 98 to 99%. We are using other make meters as well. And multi-technology. There has been a question which was raised today, and we absolutely appreciate it. That is, multi-technology handling will be difficult. It won't be difficult if in case the utility takes the onus of doing it. The only problem that we are finding now happens to be multiple technologies which are coming in also means that multiple kinds of meters, they have to be type tested. Along with that type testing, that BIS certification, these labs are very overcrowded, sir. And therefore, the meters which we have given in October are yet to be getting certificates. Sir, this delays the project. So a lot of journey has been done, and like it or not, in India, we have installed a huge number of meters already in our own pockets, in our own styles, CapEx, OpEx, and all of them. But one thing is, this is the last mile which needs to be done, because there is another thing that I would like to say. I don't know whether you will agree with me. Innovation is one part of a rainbow. The other part happens to be standardization. Now, innovations in communication is always happening, and standardization takes its own time. Therefore, cost benefit, etc. Every new innovation comes up with the idea that it will be cheaper. We can't wait for that, right? So therefore, this has to be balanced out in some way, because otherwise your type testing and certifications will never settle down. That's all from my side, sir. Thank you.
So thanks a lot. Very interesting. Very interesting. A very, very fresh view of the things, and I'm sure one thing is very, very vibrantly clear, that installing smart meter is not just taking meter and fitting in somebody's house. There are two aspects of it, that you are entering a house. Entering a house is not a straightforward activity. It requires first probably winning the confidence, and installing smart meter is winning the confidence of the consumer on the ground, and probably their hand-holding of the DISCOM as well as the implementing partner, both is very, very important, and understanding the context where you are going and installing and creating a complete ecosystem around it, I think would be very, very important. So I think it is a very interesting presentations and discussion, and we don't have much time. I thought we'll have second round on to the what readiness of DISCOMs is required in case we want to ramp up to such large number of meters. But then probably before we go to that, or we probably avoid that, we'll take some questions if they are there before we really have summary of the discussions today. So can we have the questions if there are any?
Well, thank you so much. The session was really, really amazing. And now I request the audience to please go ahead with the questions.
When the questions do come, one is there, so we take it directly instead of deliberating any further. So it says standard/unit route map. If I could read it properly, route map for implementation of smart grid has been implemented for all the utilities to get good results in short time. So if I could interpret the question properly, it says the standardization versus customization. Is this the question? I'm not very sure. So I also have a thought around it. You know, when we are all talking about standardization, and we, as very well said by Mr. Raychaudhuri, that one leg of it is customization and other is standardization. So probably ramp up requires standardization. Too much of customization won't allow you this kind of numbers, as brought out by one of the speakers, that the turnaround time. And the practical SLAs, say somebody saying 99.9% disconnection in 2 hours. I tell you, to achieve this SLA, this is a stated SLA, I'm not saying from my side, it's a stated SLA in one of the projects, 99.9% disconnection to be achieved in 2 hours. Now it requires a satellite to be launched in that area to have perfect communication, that in 2 hours, at any point in time within 2 hours, in last 2 minutes also, if you ask me to disconnect, I should be able to do 100%. That's where the practicality, I think Mr. Gupta referred to, the expectation setting of the consumer, of the DISCOM, and owning these SLAs by themselves also, to have right turnaround time in terms of all aspects is very important. And there the question of the standardization probably comes into picture, that probably the specifications, the tempers which are being talked about, meter specifications, these need to standardize. For example, now today the situation is that I cannot use meter of one DISCOM in other DISCOM. Can the country run like this? There are more than 80 DISCOMs in this country. If I have a separate supply chain for all 80 DISCOMs, can this requirement be met in single phase, 3-phase, and various other LT, and the different kind of meters? So I think some amount of standardization on the specification and the complete process is required. So sorry, I could not really interpret the question very well, but to the extent I thought that is there. So if there's any other question we can take, or else I have a few thoughts which I'll ask the speakers.
We have few more questions, sir.
Please go ahead. Is financial incentive will have effect on completion of projects in time? So I think Mr. Gupta, if you could develop on this question. The question is financial incentive will have effect on completion of projects in time? So you're on mute.
Yeah. See, financial incentive is what I have understood. See, we are doing financial modeling of the project, and we are putting our efforts to take the maximum benefits from the project. And to taking the maximum benefits, we have to engineering what you have rightly said. When we standardize the documents like GTPs and TS, all those things, definitely when a project takes lesser time in implementation, it will definitely, the benefits will be towards customer side, consumer side, number one. Number two, to maximize the benefits of financial incentive, if we SLAs are meeting out and investment is in proper shape and borrowing is at a reasonable rate of interest, so definitely incentive will be there. So to achieve and to get incentives, the first and foremost thing, what we have also said, across the country, we have to make standardized documents, bidding documents, drawings, GTP, with minor customization, DISCOM to DISCOM, so that if we have taken some meters for one DISCOM, it may be used for the another DISCOM. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि वो DISCOM में हमारा TS अलग है, हमारा TS अलग है. As far as consumer is concerned, all are single phase consumers mostly, and having the same load capacity, same meters. So we have to standardize the meter itself to optimize the cycle time of the project. That's on my side.
Exactly. I think well said. Any other question from the audience if there is? Yeah, there's any training facility can be provided by a successful smart meter utility agency for successful completion of project? It's a very good question. So I think the question asks that what kind of training facility is required for smart meter utilities to really engage them or to make them enable to really take on these projects. If Kumud ma'am, if you could really put some light on this, on the training aspect of the ground team as well as the interface with DISCOMs here.
Yes, as rightly asked, training is very important for successful implementation of the project, and we do have basic training module for 3 days program for beginners to be trained for at our Smart Grid Knowledge Center, Palmanesar, wherein actual hands-on training is also part of that 3-day basic training program. Also, we do have MOUs with the CPRI and IIT Kanpur, wherein this basic training on smart grid is being delivered with funding from Ministry of Power. So that is for the utility professionals, which gives an overview of what smart metering or smart grid can deliver and how it can be taken up further. Besides that, in addition to that, there needs to be another training capacity program which actually builds on the skill set of the field executives or field personnel, which can be in the form of some video training modules, so that they can actually learn how to handle the actual implementation of the smart metering part. So
Sure.
that's
Yeah.
training.
Yeah, I would request Mr. Raychaudhuri also to put half a minute on this. What kind of training they imparted on ground to the field executive, which Kumud ma'am is saying is required? What you guys did to really ensure that they do the good job?
So we used our existing channels for consumer awareness and customer enrollment. That is, we go there and then speak with we have our RWA, IWA interfaces ready in the northwest part of Delhi. So we use them and we started doing that for the consumer interface. For our teams, it's the same meter installation team which will be installing it. So therefore, just that one decision, that 100% meter will be tested at backend so that there is no issue in the meter when I put up, just for communication. Therefore, the meter team which is putting it up doesn't have any other job over there, no, other than putting that meter up. Before that, the prior communication testing and communication availability, because RF was our owned network, and that had huge problems actually, because initially the plan was one thing. When we started putting it up at that point of time, within 2 years, maybe a few high rises have come in between. Maybe the number density has increased. Maybe it has waned. So because of all this, the number of collectors and routers varied. It happens. So that communication team will go on its own. It will go differently. So there is a backend check and a ground validation team. That's all.
Sure.
Nobody else goes to site.
Thank you. So we have exceeded the time, but if there's anything else we can address. There's another question of changing the panel board in apartments is a challenge in terms of cost involved from Telangana South. Yeah, certainly it is, no dispute about it, and we can't add any value more than the statement which is already made. Yes, it is a cost, lots of cost involved, and that's to be taken care of. Yeah, if there are any other questions on this.
I think that's all for today.
Sure. So we had some more agenda. We thought that we could deliberate on what readiness discoms need to have while they undertake this kind. This is not a simple project. Smart metering is not a simple project. It's not installing some digital meters or conventional meters. There's lots of preparedness on part of discom which is required, handholding and all that, because this is a large mission program. But I think we have already exceeded the time, and we would like to wrap up here. It has been very interesting discussion. Some of the key takeaways I could easily say, for example, communication has been almost impressed by all the speakers, which is required to be there, as well as documentation. Yes, lots of feedback loop, standardization. You cannot have, if a car manufacturing company starts to have the 20 colors of the cars at the same time, you would see large rollouts of the cars are done to start with 3 colors, 4 colors. They don't launch 20 colors, right? You pick the color and you'll get it, because the customer, too much of customization makes the process very slow and very difficult. So, one should choose for standardization as much as possible, so that you can use meters, interdiscom, you can use processes in a standardized manner. So that's, I think, has been stressed upon a lot by the speakers. So then ownership of the discoms, which is most critical. This should not be treated like an EPC project. This is not an EPC project. This is an ownership project which is to be co-evolved, co-monitored, and co-learned. Right, and then when it comes to ramp up, lot many different strategies of implementation on the ground. This is not going and just putting the meter. There's lots of heart winning and confidence winning of the consumer, which comes into picture. So on the IT side, as it was said, probably instead of small IT programs, small IT infra, you probably need a large IT infra which could have a, for example, if you have GSTN network, you have a massive backend, and there are ground kiosks which actually take the data and pump the data into central database, which is secure, scalable, modular, safe. So in view of the Discom's limited capability of IT, probably a good IT infra, which is large scale, is very much need of the hour, which can actually cater for 250 million kind of requirement. These are the few findings. I think a very, I would say, deep discussion, lots of good ideas coming, and I really thank a lot to all the panelists for being here with us. Yeah, please, all yours.
Well, thank you, sir. Well, I would just like to know how was our panelists and everybody's experience in terms of the overall event, the topics, and engagement.
Sure, let's ask starting with Gupta ji, and then we can ask others.
Hello. Yeah, we really express sincerely thanks to the organizers and to making us a part of this Elite panel, where we have shared our views and gathered also the experience from the other panelists so that we can incorporate in future coming projects to avoid the time gap and delay in the projects. And my last point from my side, we have to put more focus on writing of contract agreement and MOU among all the stakeholders which are being part of the smart metering project, so that in future we should not land up in any issue and payment. Number one. Number two, we have to give emphasis on standardization of documents and drawings to overcome the time delay in the project. With this, I must say thanks to the organizers. Thank you very much.
Mr. Raychaudhuri, please, your thoughts.
You come to know of countrywide situations once you sit in a meeting like this. All sorts of ideas, and with COVID coming in, interactions have come down so much that this is the only alternative. I think I am meeting Wadhwa ma'am after at least 2 to 3 years. That's how things are. That's it. Thank you. Thanks to everybody. I hope the part which was expected from us has been properly delivered. Bye. That's all from my side.
Javis?
Thank you first of all for giving this opportunity, and participating in such conference is quite insightful from the experts. But sir, I should compliment you for making this session lively. Otherwise, normally webinars are actually very exhausting and one-sided, right? So compliment to you as well, and thank you very much for this.
Sure. Kumud.
Thank you for the invitation. It was really very interesting discussion, and I always enjoy knowledge exchange because we get to learn about the latest whatever is happening, and excellent moderation by Mr. Rawal. So it was really a very insightful discussion. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot to all panelists. And frankly, if you recall 6 months back, webinars were, if you get a webinar call on the mail, you immediately delete it. You feel, what is this? And see the change. About 1 year back, I don't recall a year back a webinar in the mail and I read it properly. I won't even read the mail properly, because our ideas were the discussion have to be in physical, there has to be a hall, and then you go and speak or at least listen. But then the world has changed for sure, and changed for the better for sure. And as being asked, I would say these are very good forums where we actually think outside from the routines, where we get stuck day in day out, and think differently, think out of the box, and ask others also. So for sure, nice experience, and thanks a lot to all panelists. Really deep thoughts shared. Yeah, and thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. I must say that everybody was fantastic and very, very nicely done. Thank you so much, all the panelists and the moderator. I would like to thank sponsors. I would like to thank all the keynote speakers and panelists throughout 2 days of event who all have participated, and our audience who have been so engaging, though it's virtual, but we have got a very, very amazing feedback from the audience as well. So thank each and everybody, and the organizer, Aayera. So thank you so much, everybody, for being a part of this event. I hope it was very, very informative for all of us, and we are looking forward for much more like this. Well, thank you again, and have a great time. Thank you.
Thank you. Stay safe. Yeah.